Good morning, Kinaway members. We're here today as this is an important day of reflection and remembrance, and are grateful to be here and share this important moment. I'd like to observe a minute's silence to remember and honour the armed forces who sadly lost their lives in the line of duty. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget. Great. Thanks, everyone, and good morning to Kinaway members, and welcome back to another episode of Kinaway TV. Before we kick things off this morning, I'd like to acknowledge the Bundjalung people as the traditional owners of the land on which I am coming to you all from. I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which each and every one of us are tuning in from, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'd like to also acknowledge the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people who sacrificed their lives protecting our country. I'd just like to take a moment to remind our viewers of some of the support services currently available for Kinaway members. The first support package on offer, which is in collaboration with Kinaway member Claystone Marketing, is free access to Claystone's social media and marketing course. The course provides an overview of social media marketing strategies and tools, which helps highlight marketing opportunities for Indigenous business. It's a great resource and is really helpful to businesses looking to solidify their online presence. In another collaborative effort, Kinaway is excited to partner with Boost Legal Templates. Designed for small businesses, Boost Legal Templates gives you clarity, safety, and access to real quality legal templates. Just complete the friendly questionnaire and you will instantly receive your own legal template, which you can take pride in knowing it is being created specifically for your business. This collaboration will save member businesses time, money, and ensures businesses are on the go while implementing good business governance. Kinaway is proud to offer members a 25% discount across all Boost Legal Templates, so if you feel this is something you may be interested in, please contact the Kinaway team. Another support package we're currently looking to deliver is support for our member businesses around digital capability, whether it be website development, e-commerce capabilities, social media and marketing, and many other components surrounding a business and its digital presence. So please keep an eye out for this. I'd like to also mention the confidential phone crisis line for Victorian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, launched by the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service. The service is for Indigenous people and families who feel they may need to have a yarn with someone about their wellbeing. This 1-800 helpline is a statewide social and emotional wellbeing service, and their number is 1-800 95 9563. Operates 7 days a week from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. and you'll find their contact information on the screen throughout today's webinar. And finally, there are plenty of webinars on various topics available on our Facebook and YouTube channels. So please feel free to jump on at any stage and make yourself familiar with the content. Along with these webinars and support packages mentioned, Kinaway is still offering the usual forms of business support for our members. So if you feel you may need assistance or support of any kind, please feel free to get in contact with the team here at Kinaway. And for this morning's webinar, we're pleased to be hosting a panel discussion aligning with the Naidoc Week theme, always was, always will be, as we invite members from the Indigenous community to educate and bring awareness of the significance of the role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play in caring for country. For those tuning in, please feel free to post any questions or comments on the Kinaway Facebook and YouTube channels, as I'll be joining Deborah, Brian, and Daniel as they answer any questions that we may receive throughout. We hope you enjoy this morning's panel discussion, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications to receive future Kinaway updates. Joining us on the panel today, we're fortunate to have Deborah Webster. Deborah is a proud descendant of the Barapa Nations people. Deborah has over 30 years experience in Aboriginal cultural business development and management, community development, providing cultural education for our people, community groups, land care groups, and government departments, creating a positive and culturally safe environment within their policies, procedures, workplaces and departments. Deb is the founder and CEO of Barapa Land and Water Environmental Land Management. And in 2016, Barapa Land and Water started as a land care group and has since developed into a sustainable, thriving business looking after all aspects of land, water and community. Thanks for joining us this morning, Deb.
Thank you, James.
Joining Deborah, we have Rodney Carter. Rodney is a descendant of the Dja Dja Wurrung and Yorta Yorta people and resides in Bendigo in central Victoria. He currently works for his people, the Dja Dja Wurrung, as the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Dja Dja Wurrung Clans Aboriginal Corporation and Dja Dja Wurrung Enterprises. Two passions Rodney has are first, his people's life's ways, and secondly, through biodiversity strategy, give real connection to cultural heritage as evidence of people's presence in landscapes. Sadly, the villages, homes and farms of his people have been razed to the ground by newcomers to our homelands, but today the Jara are rebuilding their lives again as leaders in central Victoria to the benefit of not only his people, but all visitors and those that choose to live here at Genjac. Rodney, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, James. Looking forward to the discussion.
It's a pleasure. And finally, joining Rodney and Deborah, we have Daniel Miller. Daniel is the General Manager on Country and is part of the management team at Gunai Kurnai Land and Waters Aboriginal Corporation, otherwise known as GLAWAC. GLAWAC is the prescribed body corporate for Gunai Kurnai people and claim area, providing joint management of 10 parks and reserves within the state. The role of GLAWAC is to further the aspirations of the Gunai Kurnai traditional owners and native title holders through the implementation of the Gunai Kurnai native title settlement agreements and the provision of high quality policy advice to provide strategic leadership by developing and leading key initiatives and to continuously improve the capacity, integrity and independence of the Gunai Kurnai. It works under the guidance of the Board of Directors and Elders Council to represent all Gunai Kurnai people in native title, cultural heritage, land, water and natural resource management and related employment aspirations and issues. Daniel, thanks for joining myself, Rodney and Deborah this morning.
Thanks, James, and thanks, Kinaway, for the opportunity.
That's our pleasure. We'll get things underway. I'll start off with yourself, Deborah. Can you tell us a little bit more about Barapa Land and Water? I understand you have a background in business development and management, amongst other things. What was the catalyst for you getting into the land and water management side of things?
I think when we started off as a land care group, I thought that was the sort of the pinpoint for us, was actually having community wanting to be out on country and wanting to learn more, protect and actually preserve our sites. That was the biggest bit that we've seen. And from that, it was just then a follow-on process. We actually were able to receive some more funding from DELP, which was our bio funding, which then helped us develop into a business and then have that sustainability of employment opportunities, training and continuing caring for country. And that's been our biggest bit, is getting people on country.
Wonderful. Thanks, Deb. And Rodney, can you tell us a little bit more about Dja Dja Wurrung? Some of the customs and practices you're ensuring are alive and valued, and also in particular, the role you're playing in land management and caring for country.
Yeah, good question, James. I think what we've tried to bring as a traditional owner group with our rights recognition with the state government because of our settlement agreement, which we're 7 years on, is to take something out of our hearts and minds and communicate it and put it on paper, and then for that to be strategic. So that's our country plan. So that then becomes the formative position of how we want to create healthy country. And then, as Deb touched on, and getting some of your mob to participate, and if they can't even directly participate, to see the improvements of healthy country makes people healthier. And then the game's on in terms of how do we actually do that as traditional owners, build our commercial arms and our businesses, and then now in a modern world try and position ourselves. What's our brand? So what's our unique business sort of proposition? So I think for my mob, we've been reasonably focused around that and use normalised business type structures that we want all of our mobs to participate in to do that. I guess what's also unique for us as businesses, and I use the analogy around spraying weeds, like if we have a commercial arm and they're spraying weeds, ultimately our integrity is so sound, we don't want to be spraying weeds in another 100 years. We would like to revisit those areas and see native plants growing and farming the environment using fire, and that I think is really unique for traditional owner businesses.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rodney. And Daniel, a bit about yourself. So, can you tell us a little bit more about GLOWAC? You know, both as a whole, and in particular, you know, some of the things that you're doing around land, water, and natural resource management.
Thanks. Well, like each of the mobs, I guess, across Victorian and indeed the country, my mob's from New South Wales, but I'm lucky enough to be working for GLOWAC and the Gunnerkuna people. We're all sort of walking in the footsteps of giants, and like Rodney said, we've had elders that have set this path for us and created the foundation for what we're all sort of working in today. So GLOWAC has an established structure that works across the settlement area in a whole stack of ways. We jointly manage 10 parks and reserves, and similar to Deb and Rodney, we have projects and teams that do fee for service work across country, which like Deb said, you know, and Rodney, the key is about getting people connected to country, giving them an avenue to get working and caring for their country. And often the disconnect has been, you know, is really well established. So it sort of takes a while and takes some really considered steps to help people get back doing meaningful work on country. And it can be through some through some basic contract work like we're all doing, and trying to give the younger people that want to be a part of rediscovering their culture and connecting to country the avenue to get more connected through projects like around fire and water, you know, two key ones for us. So we've currently got quite a number of staff very active in working right across our settlement area.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. And I'll stick with yourself for this next one, Daniel. So I know that we spoke a little bit about it, but can you tell us a bit more about how you're incorporating, you know, this practice of cultural connection and caring for country, you know, into the services that you provide, you know, and, you know, why is this significant, you know, for buyers of these services to procure them from Aboriginal businesses?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's a challenge for me and for GLOWAC to help people to rediscover their connection to country if they don't already have it. You know, so that a lot might have it, but others need to rediscover it, and it's my job to sort of help them to find those opportunities. Where we get real value from partners and many Kinaway members, I'm sure. Is doing it together. So, you know, by them understanding and appreciating the approach that we're taking, our priorities, and us being able to follow through and deliver on some meaningful projects across the country, and like Rodney said, to see some change and in the landscape, and not just be sort of doing token work each week, you know, or year. You know, we want to see progress, and we want to see that value ourselves and demonstrate that value to our partners.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. And heading back across to you, Deb, you know, how are you incorporating the practice of cultural connection and caring for country, you know, into the services that you provide? And again, you know, what do you think the significance is for buyers?
Absolutely, and especially what Daniel was saying, and I know that Rodney will agree, it's actually trying to change the landscape, and the landscape itself needs to be changed in the management side of things. And I think that's where we see it differently, in that we see it generational. not just for next year's funding. And that's probably the biggest thing that we really, we talk to the departments, we talk to the land managers, and we try and get them to see the different views of, let's not just keep spraying these weeds every year. Let's actually make it so that we've got the native grasses coming through, that we have that potential of actually changing the landscape into something more viable. And as for, just connecting with community so that they can have that opportunity, like Daniel was saying, come in every different opportunity. So, they might know something about it, they might know nothing about it, but it's having that opportunity to come in and find it, that it's a culturally safe place to come, and that, we can take them out and, show them what's out there. And I think the biggest thing that we've found is that protecting cultural sites is one of our priorities as well. While we're out on country, because if we're just a contractor, we step over them. But because we're not just a contractor, we actually take that consideration into it, and then we go back to the land managers.
Absolutely, thanks, Deb. And Rodney, again, I'll ask you the same question as well. So, how are you incorporating, culture into caring for country, within your business, and do you think it's significant, for buyers when they are procuring from Aboriginal businesses?
Yeah, James, I think we're trying to do similar things that Daniel and Deborah's touched on. There's probably not enough time today to go into all the matters. Yeah. So I like using the word that we do things simply, and then I sort of frame it that it's not simplistic in the normal sense. It's then about us trying to create confidence and capability in our mob to be engaged, to not just in a workplace environment, but the commitment of the person to the activity that needs to take place. When we do environmental, natural resource management type works, you'd found that upon maybe some of our cultural knowledge and understandings, that as hunters and gatherers, that it's really good. It's important spiritually, culturally, to get up, go to work, to be the best hunter, to go out and contribute to creating healthy country. So in part, I think what we're all starting to learn is the philosophy that our ancestors had, and some necessity in their world, and that for us as future generations, we've been made to be absent from the care and custody of landscape. So I think as businesses, we're starting to find our feet and to use all of the efficiencies and advancements of modern engineering and machinery and equipment, but to apply it how we want to apply it to landscape. So that's a bit of philosophy, James, but I think it's something really important that should be embedded in our commercial business. And when we can describe that to our mob and they share the journey and the light bulb goes on, it's an amazing, brilliant journey. And now I think future generations, guess what they inherit? They inherit, a really good set of values and commercial operations.
Absolutely. We kind of did touch on, incorporating culture, but I still want to visit that sort of relationship, between cultural connection and caring for country. And Rodney, I'll let you start with this one. Can you elaborate a bit more on, how they may be intrinsically linked? So I know Deb spoke about, preserving, significant cultural sites and things like that. Is there any other sort of relationship between, that cultural and spiritual connection and caring for country?
I think it's there somewhat, really sort of probably quietly in our mindfulness, James. Like we as we grow up, we get told by our older people, this is our culture, this is our history. And then as we develop as an individual, how we grapple with that and understand its true meaning. I think what's really important going forward, and I think the success that Deb's brought to the Land and Water mob is to allow people to be able to lead, don't hinder and hold back the goodness in our leadership, the entrepreneurship that we need, that we understand in commercial fees is actually needed for successful businesses. And sometimes I think with the mob, we're caught in a vacuum of the trauma of our history, and that's okay. It's sad, but we need to disengage from that and support our leaders so they can take the risks that maybe sometimes not all of us are comfortable to do. And that's a challenge in our organisational structures, from CEOs to Dan as a general manager to the team leaders. So what I'm trying to say is I think we've got to be true to the entrepreneurship, the commercial need, and the complexity around people, community management, people management, personnel management, so other people can have those conversations about culture, because it's so unique for each mob, and then it's so unique for each individual and family experience.
Sure. Thanks, Rodney. And Daniel, I'll ask you a similar sort of line of questioning. Is there anything that you would like to elaborate on further, just in regards to that cultural and spiritual sort of connection, then also, caring for country, any sort of relationship there might be there?
It's most Aboriginal people and most traditional owners will agree that I think that it's like a core priority, and it's intrinsic, I guess, to the success of everything that they want to do and how they want to progress in life, I suppose, and recognise. And so for GLAWAC, giving people the opportunity to be a part of that kind of work is important. So it's a bit of a balance, and like all the other mobs, we have people dedicated to this, but we try and we give that balance and let people pick their own journey of learning, and rediscovery, and bring their families along with them, which is also important. And I guess I'm seeing what I don't know a better way to describe it. It's more like, it's sort of like an upward spiral, I suppose, in some ways, which is good. And the more that the traditional owner corporations and organisations are recognised as being important, vital players to what's happening across the country, the more that we can do to support our partners and our people to achieve these outcomes. And it's the priority for GLAWAC is not about making a profit. It's about getting more people connected and involved in this sort of stuff. So whenever there's an initiative, it's about finding the ability to get more people engaged in it,
Sure. in
a meaningful way.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. And Deb, is there anything that you'd like to add, just about, caring for country and that intrinsic sort of, cultural and spiritual connection involved?
And definitely, besides the land management side and getting the community to become involved, I mean, we're the jack of all trades. We do everything. We do the community events. We do the engagement with partners. We sit on all sorts of committees and boards, and it's trying to get that change overall that happens, but it's giving community opportunity to be engaged in different ways. And I think that's, more than just going out on country as, the natural resource management worker. It's going out on country and seeing, what else can we do? How can we actually, get the community, the wider community, involved in what we're doing and see the opportunities there. And I think the biggest thing that we have going for us at the moment is definitely that spiral that's coming up, that's people want to be involved and learn, but it's also that we're now in partnership with each other. And that growing partnership with our neighbours and with the rest of the traditional owner groups around us, I think that's something that they're saying it's a different type than just an individual group. They're now seeing us as, that we are one, and that we are here, and that we all learn different things different ways. Let's have it, that we actually interlink with each other. And I think that's something that I see government really seeing, that they're not seeing us as individuals anymore. They're seeing us as a collaborative group that is a lot stronger than what they think.
That's right. Thanks, Deb. I'll stick with you, Deb, and just kind of moving on to more practical sort of sense of land management and caring for country. what can you share with us about the use of sort of native products or native practices, in land management, in the everyday things we use, but, wouldn't necessarily recognise the significance of it?
Well, I suppose it even comes down to, our products in the sense of uniforms, making sure that we can actually support other businesses around us. And this is where we've looked into who else is around, who else needs support. But it's also then that, putting people in uniforms and then putting them out there into the community and seeing that change that happens. It then brings in that practicing culture, whereas that respect bit, the caring for country and looking at the countryside through different eyes, looking at the land and waters as one instead of as separate departments.
Absolutely. And Danny, for yourself, is there anything else that you'd like to add to what Deb said? Are there any additional sort of native, products or practices that we use, that we mightn't, necessarily recognise at the time?
No, for sure. And I think the thing that comes to top of my mind is falls in the practices, and we're often reminding our partners in the state that we shouldn't look at one element of a landscape. We should look at the landscape as a cultural landscape, and as most of us get more involved in how fires delivered across the country, it doesn't have to be as combative as what conventional fire tends to be. It can be much more sort of integrated with what we want to do, as well as what any of other partners want to do as well. I think for GLAWAC, we have a significant involvement with through our M team of replanting for projects. So there's and I guess we're getting more and more able to influence the type and style of plantings that happen across sort of these larger projects. So I think that's really good, and being recognised as being having a level of interest and expertise in that kind of work is important. And again, I think it's as much up to us as to everyone else to sort of be able to come to the party and have the other parties receive us, I suppose. But I think primarily seeing it as a cultural landscape, seeing every part of it as connected, I think is important.
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. I'll throw it to you, Rodney, as well. Have you noticed there may be some, again, some sort of native products or services, that we use daily, or we sort of fail to recognise the, historical, cultural sort of significance in it?
I'm glad you're repeating the questions, James, because I don't think I'd be able to remember them. Yeah, I think our products, the natural world, not just us as people, what we can bring, but our products are probably too varied. And I'll give you the example. When we did our country plan, and one of the things was we need to put people back into landscape. And then, we're trying to be analytical, and we're looking at landscape and going, you know what, there's not enough food. Like in landscape, there's not enough fibre if a mob or we were there every day. And then now being land managers, we had to say, well, we're not necessarily going to be there like our ancestors were on any one day, but, we want to be active, we want to be present. So we decided, okay, we'll put food and fibre back into landscape. So then you go to the supply chain, even the natural world, the environment, can't cater the amount of seeds, the propagation, all those other things that we would, need to put back into the environment. So then that triggers diverse conversations that, okay, if we want somebody to grow plants to help us to put back into the environment, we want to do that with another mob. So then, we go to Barinja Gadgin and we say, look, you've got a brilliant sort of nursery, you're not getting enough custom to provide in that infrastructure. So now we build that relationship, and that makes us interconnected with them, a degree of purposeful dependence. And now we increasingly have this supply, demand in the chain, providing the product that we need to put back into landscape. Now, in food and fibre, there's so many different plants that we could be eating and utilising. So now we constrain our thought around that and say, well, at first we said we'll have 6 plants, and then we've sort of developed that'll be 9 plants, because We need to create the volume. And when you look at the commercial effort that will go into this, we're trying to not turn back the clock, but redress 200 years of disassociation with gardening the environment, landscape management. So that becomes just one way of looking at a product that we can bring that will be brilliant because it ticks a climate change box. It helps with soil health. It helps with soil moisture retention. Now insects and invertebrates that are present in landscape have something as part of their ecosystem that they need. And then we tell the scientists at Arthur Rylah Institute what our vision is, and they say, God, why didn't we do this 150 years ago? It's because, you know, they weren't engaging with us as the mob and some of their vision and thought. So I think the products out there, James, and for us, will be lasting and go beyond, you know, our immediate vision. And we hope, and I'll use the example that children that are yet to be born, we leave them a legacy of the process of what we're doing, and we'll keep them engaged, and they'll have a proper place, hopefully better than we have, and it'll definitely be better than how our ancestors were treated when newcomers come to our homelands.
That's right, and that's probably a good way into the next question as well. It's I'll start with you again, Rodney. What does the future look like? So I know that you said, you know, when it comes to caring for country, so I know that you said, you know, you want to leave it better for the kids in the generations, and you know, you mentioned, you know, looking at supply chains and things like that. You know, so what does the future look like, and how are we going to get there? Do you think?
Yeah. So, James, in our leadership, you know, I've got to be positive, and that's about mindfulness. So you know, you be positive with all the adversity that sometimes our mobs place upon us, and you command a position to try and realise dreams. So the food and fibre is an example. What we're having a crack with now, putting vegetation in landscape that needs to be burnt and burnt differently. That's cultural fire as opposed to the fires that we're seeing at the moment, to look at our water quality, our catchment health, allowing floodplains actually to be the sponges and the lungs that we understand that they need to be. I think that's the future, James. We've got to dream a little and probably check in on each other that it's achievable, it's realistic, and I think as a mob, be kinder to each other when people have probably wacky ideas that we don't understand. Interrogate, have conversations, so we share the knowledge base, we reclaim what our ancestors immediately couldn't share with us because of our dispossession and that sort of stuff. So again, I mentioned philosophy earlier, John. I think it's really important that we own that. My mob didn't know really what our country plan would be, you know, 7-8 years ago. We've had to relearn that, and I think Daniel used the example with some of our mob relearning culture. It's okay. People have just got to understand they need to support us. We'll learn to get better at what we do, and if we make a mistake, don't be so harsh on us, because I can tell you right now, we will not do any worse than the current custodians of our country have done for the last 200 years. So, you know, give us a chance and support us, and I think the future's bright.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rodney. Daniel, what does the future look like for Glabak? I know, you know, Rodney kind of spoke about, you know, the sharing of knowledge and, you know, possibly looking at creating, you know, their own sort of indigenous sort of big business economy and sort of ecosystem. You know, so what's the future look like for Glabak, and, you know, how do you plan on getting there?
Yeah, Rodney's definitely right, and I agree with all of those comments. And I think I'm sitting here thinking about you know, and sort of taking Rodney's words comments a bit further. We really do need to make sure that we have foster a sort of a relationships that have an open mind and open to change, and that's internal and external. So the internal one's a challenge for us. We need to look at the way we're doing business and think about, is it the right way, or is there other ways we can we can achieve the same sort of outcomes. I think it's really important from a Glowworth perspective that that we continue to look at our partners as partners, and for them to see us as partners, and to see that as a progressive relationship. We're not here to do the the leftovers. We want to be players, and we want to be able to achieve meaningful outcomes at all levels, and we need to. I know we've been working really hard to give our partners, as we see them, and I've got a particularly really good example with the CMA and the Shire. Give them opportunities and give them the avenues to help us, I suppose. So by working together, we can do that. And we had a really good outcome with a major project just out of Bairnsdale, where our NRM team, completed a sort of $350,000 project, which doesn't sound massive, but it was a significant achievement, I think, for us. But the real achievement was in the thinking that went into planning it and executing it, and then a whole stack of other relationships have come out of it. So I see our future as being complex in the relationships, I suppose. So because we have more meaningful partnerships that where we can demonstrate positive outcomes for both. So I need to be open to those partnerships, and I need all of them to be as well.
Absolutely. Thanks Daniel, and Deborah. What's the future look like for Land and Water?
Well, I think for Brappa Land and Water, definitely for the Brappa community, I think it's really taken that step forward and wanting to be the leaders. And the equal partnership is the biggest thing that we've been working on. Is we want that equal partnership. We don't want to come in and just do the prickles every year. We want the opportunity to actually show how we can manage the landscape, how we can actually bring our community, along with us. And that's probably our biggest bit is, having that opportunity and then bringing the wider community along with us as well. There's a lot of supporters out there. We've done a small forest garden for one of our climate change projects, which, again, looking at the youth, we're bringing the students along with us, and that's something they can then share with their families. And I think that's the only way how we're going to move forward at this stage. It's showing people that we have the abilities and the capabilities and the knowledge, and that we want to share it with them. Otherwise, we can't do this alone. And that's the biggest thing I say.
Sure. Thanks, Deborah. And thank you everyone for those questions. I am a little conscious of time, so we'll have one more question for our panelists this morning, and it's around. We are in Naidoc week, so I'll start with yourself, Deborah. The Naidoc week theme for 2020 is always was and always will be. Can you tell us, what that theme means to yourself?
I think the biggest thing for myself personally, and something that I really try and push forward, is that I don't do this for myself. I do this for my ancestors, and I feel so proud to be able to be on country and actually try and make changes. And that's going to go through to the next generation. We don't ever look at things, I don't ever look at things as mine. It's for the future.
Sure. Thanks, Deb. Rodney, what is this 2020 theme mean for yourself? Always was and always will be.
Yeah, when I actually heard it announced, I thought, I was only a little tacker, and we used to march down the street and we used to scream it, to the tops of the trees and the buildings, and I had a moment sort of reflecting on it. I think it's just something so powerful about our rights recognition as a people, something that we all own, and maybe deep down, and it's not good to be angry, maybe frustrated. I still want to yell it, but now I think what we see with their mobs is they can just speak it, and it can be softly, it can be poetic on how you'd say to people, just always was, always will be. It doesn't have to be confronting anymore. The person that receives that message, it should be something we aspire to. And I think it's lasting, and another 100 years, I reckon it'll come up as another Naidoc theme to be celebrated.
Yeah. Thanks, Rodney. And Daniel, what does this year's theme mean to yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, no, I think Deborah and Rodney spoke really well to that. No, for me, I think, like Rodney said before, things are different now, and we're never going to get back to something that was, pre 250 years ago. But and we've sort of got other things we're chasing now. But it comes back to that statement, doesn't it? And I think if it's recognised and understood, it doesn't feel like it's a challenging kind of a statement. It's just a statement that's correct, and if we can all sort of settle on that and move forward with managing country as best we can, knowing that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Matter of fact.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Daniel. And we actually have our first question from Dylan. And he asked, thanks for this morning to all. What are you doing to celebrate Naidoc Week this year? So, Daniel, I'll let you start with that one.
Sure. Well, I'm not a particularly technological person, so I won't be able to speak to it very well. But and I'm not on Facebook and things. But I think our approach has been to encourage community members and to present on Facebook or on some of whatever systems we use at Glowak to talk about what it means to them. So we, a couple of 30-second grabs. We want to get people talking about it and connecting with Glowak. So that's how we're doing it and trying to be COVID compliant, I suppose.
Yeah,
that's right. How about yourself, Rodney? What are you doing this year to celebrate Naidoc?
I generally work. And in between working, normally I do some celebration activity. So all we did on country was, I shouldn't say all, but flag raising. I think the symbolism, the idea of the banner in a true sense around our flag and what it means. And isn't that a topical discussion for another seminar with Kinaway? But I think, as Daniel touched on, at the moment, as much as we probably want to get out and rub shoulders, it's about stay the course. People look after each other, keep talking. I've seen my mob through COVID probably talk and virtually be engaged more than I've ever seen before, James. And I think that's an evolution. It's brilliant. And some of the elders have been taken on that journey because they're not too technologically sort of literate, but it can be about families getting together, sharing the technology. So haven't done much, but still really proud to be who I am and part of what traditional owners are doing in Victoria. It's brilliant.
Thanks, Rodney. And Deborah, what are you doing this year?
And ditto for both Rodney and Daniel. It's really hard with COVID. But we definitely have pushed it out there. And I suppose for us personally as a business, we're actually pushing it back onto our partners to have that understanding of just because it's COVID, don't ignore that this is Naidoc Week. And it's that pride that we have that we need to keep sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Deborah. We have one last final question that come through. I'm too short for pop. Yep. There it is, and it's from Steph. Steph asked, we have, as part of acknowledgement of traditional owners, that they are custodians of this country. Why is this important to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders? Rodney, I'll let you start with this one.
So if I think of our spirituality and our law custom, and that's different for all mobs, what's embedded in our being, and I say to people, it's in our DNA. You can't give it away. You can't sell it. Not at this point in time can you replicate it, is a connection to country and a physical connection immediately is our DNA. Our ancestors are buried and returned back to the country that they're born from. Now, for others, that's challenging because you can't actually sort of buy into that as a spiritual way of being. But that's okay. It should be about, I think, people acknowledging the importance of my inherent right to care for country, to have the custody, to be a traditional owner. So I think that's what has to happen in people's thinking, James. And I think that lends itself to what really is Australian identity and this idea of a sovereign power actually occupying our country. And it'll be up to future lawmakers and philosophers and that stuff to be challenged with that discussion. But I think that's redress to learn what that really is about. Then the challenge is for the traditional owners, if they're these inherent leaders, that they lead for the people. You lead for others. And good leaders, guess what? They make the greatest sacrifices of anyone in a family, in a community.
Well said, Rodney. Thank you very much. Deborah, Daniel, is there anything else that you would like to add to Rodney's answer?
I think definitely it's that pride that we have. It's that feeling of once you're on country, and I think definitely that custodian side of things is that we are here to look after our landscape and our people. I think that gives it a more of it's an internal thing that we have to be able to, we can share with each other, and that, others need to accept that feeling that we have, and that pride is why we go that extra step further.
And I think, and from my perspective, I think I won't speak to the spiritual component because Deborah and Rod have done really good with that. I think to think of it as anything else seems odd. I think because it's like putting people separate from country, which doesn't work. All parts of country are connected, and that includes the traditional owners and Aboriginal people. So it's I think it's a natural thinking for people to think of themselves as custodian, because that, to me, is a part of the system, not separate or above the system.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. I believe that is all for the questions this morning. So before we let everybody go, Daniel, Deborah, and Rodney, on behalf of Kinaway and Kinaway's members and everyone who tuned in this morning, we'd just like to thank you all for joining us. It's really appreciated.
Thanks very much for the opportunity, James.
You're welcome. I just want to thank everyone who tuned in this morning as well, and we hope you're all having a wonderful Naidoc week. We hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars. If you do wish to attend, please jump onto the Kinaway website to register your interest. And again, if you wish to catch up on any previous Kinaway TV panel discussions or webinars, jump onto the Kinaway Facebook and YouTube channels where you'll be able to access them. We are holding some additional webinars and panel discussions over Naidoc Week. If you think they may be of interest, please jump on to the Kinaway website where you'll find a Naidoc Week tab at the top of the page, and you'll find some further information about the Kinaway panel discussions and webinars, and also some other events that may be happening around the country. Until then, please don't forget to leave a like on today's video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications to receive Kinaway updates. Thank you again to all who joined us this morning, and we hope you have a great Wednesday and an even better Naidoc week.